Richard Cordray joins the race for governor. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Kathy Kandinsky, State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch. Ann Fisher, host of All Sides with Ann Fisher on 89.7 NPR News. Bob Clegg, Republican strategist, and Joseph Moss of the Ohio Hispanic Coalition. Perhaps the Democrats' strongest candidate has entered the crowded race for governor. Former state treasurer and attorney general Richard Cordray officially launched his campaign this week in his hometown of Grove City, saying he wants to focus on kitchen table issues.
Like the cost of health care and college, how to find that better job, and how to be able to save for retirement.
The last item on Cordray's resume was as head of the controversial Federal Consumer Protection Bureau, Financial Consumer Protection Bureau. He has been tapping into that experience and Democrats' fondness for it.
Americans are better off because of what Rich has done as our consumer watchdog.
Rich has dedicated much of his life to protecting consumers and to holding big companies accountable.
That was a campaign video released by Cordray on the day of his announcement. Kathy Kandinsky, is he the favorite on the Democratic side now?
I think he has to be considered the favorite at this point. As you mentioned in your setup, he's got big names behind him, Obama, Senator Warren. He's promised that he's going to have a lot of national money coming in to back him. And he's run statewide before. And in fact, if this ends up being a rematch between DeWine and him, he and DeWine ran for AG back in 2010, I believe. Yep. And I think it was under a 2-point spread, DeWine won. So, you know, he played well on the state level. So, yeah, I do think he is.
Kitchen table topics, and I mean, that's where the Democrats, analysts say, fell down.
Right.
2 years ago, focusing on college education, wages, health care. That's a good message, at least to start anyway.
Right, and what they've got to get better at is making their case for why they can talk about the kitchen table topics. Yeah. That's been a weakness of theirs. We'll see if he can improve on that this time around.
Bob, how do Republicans view him? They came out right away, you know, they've been after him even before he announced that he did this, he did that, things like that. How do they view Richard Cordray?
I think they view him that, you know, he's the front runner. But the question is, the big question on the Democrat side is, are they going to be able to clear the field or not? And if he has a primary, especially with what happened on our side last week with the merger of DeWine and Husted, they still may have a primary, but for them to win a primary, they're going to have to spend a lot less money than Cordray may have to if there's 3 or 4 other people running. And that's the key to these races is how much are these guys going to have to spend in the primary? Because then if they take down their campaign fund to win a primary, they got to rebuild that. And then, you know, that makes it that much tougher if your opponent didn't have to spend as much and is sitting on money.
Yeah, that's solid reasoning. I agree with Bob. I at the same time, I do think, as it often happens in these races, that perhaps the field will clear, and it could be that one of the current candidates in the primary may join Cordray as a running mate. So that would be an expected thing.
Are Democrats excited to have, because you know it was back and forth. Yeah, he was in, then he wasn't, then it was gone. Are they excited?
Well, and I think the reason that we had this back and forth is because they were excited about the possibility of Cordray coming into the race, even though he was denying or being rather non-communicative about it. And since the announcement, then I'm seeing nothing else on social media. So there is certainly excitement.
There's been some criticism amongst the others that are in the primary right now. The other Democratic candidates were a little critical of him abandoning his post. The reality is he only had a few more months left on that post anyway. But there was some criticism amongst the folks that he's now running against.
Didn't have a choice. I mean, either he came out now or he just didn't run at all.
And they have to show some kind of interest in what they're doing and what they're pursuing. And then, I agree. I think that the field's going to winnow. It will, naturally. Probably one of them, I would imagine, is going to go on the ticket with him, perhaps a woman. Would look, although either, you know, a couple of them are pretty strong candidates on their own volition, but.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I mean, there's a lot of talk about the strength of women candidates in 2018 because of all the sexual harassment scandals that have been happening. Would the Democrats be better to have a Nan Whaley, a Connie Pillich, or a Betty Sutton at the top of the ticket?
You know, at the end of the day, I think that, and again, looking at Bob, I think at the end of the day, I think that the primary voters will decide on that. But that is a topic that is dominating.
I think it has more to do with than just the sexual harassment trend. I think it also has to do with a lot of pent-up emotion about the 2016 cycle and Hillary Clinton losing the way she did. So I think there's a combination of things that'll come to play in
And it would certainly, if you consider DeWine Husted to be the front runners on the Republican side, which I think many people do, this would really set the Democrats apart if they had a female on the ballot.
Yeah, it's somewhere on the, yeah,
Somewhere.
absolutely on it.
I take it Republicans might want Elizabeth Warren next to Richard Cordray in the general election.
Yes.
I mean, it's going to work now in the primary.
Yeah.
She's a darling of the left.
Oh, yeah.
But she's
Oh,
not
yeah.
as well liked
No.
by Republicans, certainly, and even some moderates.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, how far to the left is Cordray going to have to go to win a primary, you know, and then can he come back to the center? I'm not sure. I agree with Ann in that, you know, I think for the Democrats, remember this last cycle, 16, it was, you know, totally different. We were in a different political world. And the old days of picking the candidate who's best known and has got, you know, great name ID and can raise money isn't necessarily the one that's going to win, as you saw with Hillary Clinton and Ted Strickland. Mm-hmm. And I see the Democrats still going down that same old road.
You know, I think that if they play their cards right, in my opinion, the value of Elizabeth Warren and President Obama is going to be their ability to help him raise money and not be out there up front with him, you know, particularly in the general election, but maybe not even in the primaries, but just behind the scenes.
And enthusiasm, too, Joe.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and again, what Bob was saying about Elizabeth, how far to the left will he have to go? Elizabeth Warren is it, and he's already done that. So I think that'll be it.
So he's the Bernie Sanders candidate? Supporters of Bernie Sanders will go for Richard Cordray?
Yes.
Because of Elizabeth Warren?
Yes, but I don't want to say that that Cordray is like Bernie Sanders. But will the supporters go? Oh yeah.
Yeah, no.
I don't think.
I
we
thought he
wanted
was
to say
like
that.
Bernie Sanders.
Similarities, well, I wouldn't say this. Bill O'Neill, what is he doing? The Supreme Court
Speaking
Justice.
of Bernie Sanders.
Well, he's eccentric, I guess. But, you know, he's now going to run. He's going to leave the Supreme Court the end of January, file into early February. And
So
he had said he wasn't going to run if Cordray was running. His platform is legalizing marijuana.
That's right.
There's some other things on
So,
it.
Yeah,
and we
that's
know
his-
Cordray's not going to go that far left, so, you know.
Well, it's an interesting candidate, and I think it's not just the marijuana. He also wanted to reopen the state mental hospitals in order to have space for the treatment of opioid, and I don't know that has been thought through.
He wants
I
to
don't know
use
that
the
treatment is
proceeds from
necessarily-
marijuana to help
That's
treat
correct.
the opioid crisis. That's
That
the full.
is it, and he wants Cordray to embrace that exact policy before he steps out of the race.
I tell you though, Bill O'Neill, you cannot underestimate the guy. I mean, he won a Supreme Court seat without spending a dime. And, you know, he's going to be problematic. I don't care if he gets in this thing, it's going to shake things up and it's going to make it I think it's going to end up, Cordray's going to have to spend even that much more money because, you know, O'Neill is a very well-known name and people are going to want to vote for it.
But I think what O'Neill's most known for now is his Facebook post, which I don't think helps him in this. at all.
Bragging about
That was problematic.
50 women
yes.
and yeah.
It didn't even make any sense.
Yeah. Anyway, next topic. Two-term State Treasurer Josh Mandel remains the favorite to win the Republican primary for U.S. Senate, but the Franklin County GOP threw some shade Mandel's way this week. The county's Republican Central Committee voted to endorse Cleveland businessman Mike Gibbons over Mandel. Apparently it wasn't even close. Gibbons says the vote was 85-16. Bob Clegg, what does this say? Were you there?
I was there.
How'd you vote?
I'm not a member of that
Oh,
committee.
okay, all right.
I'm Delaware County, not
That's
Franklin
right, you are
County.
Delaware
Yeah.
County.
Hey, what this is a very clear picture of the feud between John Kasich and Josh Mandel that has been going on for the last almost 8 years. Obviously, Franklin County's got many Central Committee members that are also members of the Kasich administration. And I think this was their way to, you know, show their not enthusiasm for Josh Mandel. I also think, though, there is part of this, and it's in, and we just discussed it. It's in the Republican electorate. There is that feeling of we want somebody new and different. We like somebody who comes from the business community, who's never been in government, who can come in and look at it from a different perspective and not the same old, same old. So there's some of that, and that is a bigger problem for Josh, I think, in the primary, is how is he going to contrast himself with a guy that's got a good life story and is not an insider, he's an outsider, and that can be very attractive.
And Mandel, I mean, he's embraced the Trump ideology and the Trump agenda completely, and you know, I have maintained
But that's not a problem in the primary.
Well, it may not be in the primary, Bob.
Well,
but
it won't
you know,
be a problem in the primary. That's why he's embracing it.
But what happened, isn't it an expression or an understanding or beginning of an understanding that maybe what we have here is three parties. We have the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and the Trump Party. And maybe here in Columbus and maybe in other places, we're beginning to see the tension that will have to resolve itself in some way on your side.
I mean, this is the only situation in that Central Committee meeting where a non-traditional Republican got the endorsement. The rest of them was all right down the line, so it's not like Franklin County has become this non-Trump party.
Could Josh Mandel use this to his advantage, that the Columbus elites have spurned me, but I don't answer to the Columbus elites, I answer to the folks in Knox County and Morrow
Sounds like
County.
you're on the payroll. It sounds
Well, I'm just saying,
exactly
that's
like
maybe his
something
message.
Josh would. Sounds like exactly like something Josh would do. Yeah, I mean, that's what he's got to do. Try and spin it in his favor.
But he can't spin himself as more of an outsider than this opponent this time, you know.
No. Well, he can.
Any
He can
chance,
try.
Bob, that Gibbons wins this primary? Is there any chance?
Sure. I mean, in politics, you know, anybody has a chance, okay?
President Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, anybody's got a chance. It's going to be tough because, you know, the name awareness is so, I mean, Josh has got such a better name awareness, and he's going to have so much, I shouldn't say this, I think he's going to have more money, but I don't know, Mike Gibbons may self-fund too. I think he has that ability. If he does self-fund and they're at the same levels of dollars spent, you know, who knows?
And which one is the traditional candidate? It's Gibbons, right?
Well, he is, but he isn't.
They're both touting their ties to Donald Trump.
Nobody's a traditional Republican in this race.
Gibbons was co-chair for Trump, which, you know, means something, but not a whole lot of times. But we'll see. The process of getting Ohio's medical marijuana program started has problems. Here's where it stands. In the past few weeks, the state awarded licenses to 24 businesses to grow medical marijuana. Half would operate small facilities. The other half, large ones. One guy who did not get a license calls the process a travesty. Jimmy Gould, who led the failed 2015 pot legalization ballot effort, says the state has favored political insiders and he threatens to sue. Then it came out that one of the state's consultants used to evaluate the applications has a drug conviction in his past. Several top-ranking state officials want to halt the process to figure out what's going on. So, Ann, what's going on?
Well, I mean, it wasn't just a drug conviction, it was a felony drug conviction. He pleaded guilty to that, and that is something that would have disqualified any potential grower applicant. I think the question is, what was the process for vetting the selection committee? They've never given a straight, not that I've not seen yet a straight answer to that. Who got picked to be on the committee and why were they chosen? How were they vetted? How were the screeners screened? And I think those are some really valid questions because there are other decisions to be made as time goes on. So I think those are valid questions. However, I think there's also a salient point that, you know, it's already taken almost it's going to be 2 years by the time things unroll in September 2018, which is the deadline to get, you know, the marijuana on the medical market. And they already go at a glacial pace. I don't know what would happen if it was stopped up. Now, everybody and his mother and his father-in-law is asking for this to be looked at, though. Let's put it this way. Everyone who's running for public office is saying, wait a minute, let's check this out.
But why did the prior conviction disqualify him? I don't think there is anything that has been stated that says that he should be disqualified.
There isn't, but I think that there is a valid question that he is been has a felony conviction, that would have disqualified one of the people running to be a grower, yet he has been chosen to be on the selection committee.
But he's
seems
not
that
applying to be a
no,
grower.
he's not,
just
but
part of the
it
selection
It doesn't
committee.
seem that he should be
Antithetical-
able to evaluate people that wouldn't meet the criteria, that
I
he
guess
was
it-
unable to meet himself.
I guess the larger question then is, well, why not let people with previous felony convictions be growers?
Maybe they should. What
Maybe,
what
but
did bootleggers do after Prohibition
they ran the best
was
bars in
retired?
town.
I mean,
What
I
am
assume that they
missing
went into the
here?
business.
What am I missing here? It seems like we're trying to pick the people that would be the best marijuana cultivators. Okay, well, who's going to be experts at
People
that?
who have done it
The
before.
bootleg-
Okay, and when was this illegal? Up until a few years ago, it was illegal.
Yeah.
So all of these people, I'm sure, at one time or the other, illegally grew marijuana.
Well, I'm not sure, and I suppose some people would come at you and say defamation. I don't get, I mean, I agree with you. I don't disagree with it. I just think that for all the time they've taken slapping together this committee,
Well, he
the
was
selection committee.
he was a consultant. He's not like he's a full-time employee that would
No.
have gone through a full
no,
vetting
but
process.
he has
but he was a
people's
consultant.
futures, help. Yeah, it just seemed like it's kind of sloppy.
Well, it raises issues if you didn't get what you wanted out of the process. This is something to kind of hang your hat off on in terms of complaining about the
Sour
process.
grapes.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Right.
It also came out that apparently Mr. Gould is going to try to get back on the ballot in 2018 with a full-blown legalization of marijuana effort, different than the last time. He said it's going to be a free market, from what we understand. Free market, not the controlled 6 or 7 people controlling the market.
That's right. And does anybody have any doubt that eventually we're going to have legalization of marijuana?
No.
I think no.
Yeah.
No, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And if they're doing it next year, they're picking a much better year because the last time in 2015 it was an off year election and the turnout was low. Gubernatorial year is not as good as presidential, but it's still a lot better. So the chances are much
The
better.
midterms will be good, I think, this time around.
Other states have had problems trying to get this, even medical marijuana, up and running, legal fights. Wherever there's money, there are lobbyists and there are lawyers. If you don't get your way, you're going to fight it. Is this just par for the course and the growing pains, no pun intended, of marijuana?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And now for our next topic, fondness for the Cleveland Browns is in short supply these days, but one lawmaker says the winless NFL team could be the key to saving pro soccer in Columbus. After the Browns suddenly left for Baltimore, Ohio lawmakers passed a law that says if a team plays in a publicly supported stadium, it cannot move without giving local people a chance to buy that team. State Rep Mike Duffy says the 1996 law applies to the Crew because the state has cut the team a good deal on its stadium site and paid for parking lot upgrades. Attorney General Mike DeWine is on board. He agrees. Meanwhile, down in Texas, the Crew's owners this week unveiled renderings of its proposed stadium in Texas. Beautiful Austin skyline in the background, and green has replaced the black and gold of the Columbus Crew. Joe Mas, legally speaking, does the state have any chance to stop this team from moving?
Yes and no. Mike DeWine is relying on Ohio Revised Code 9.67. And it's a fairly brief statute. And all that it basically says is that indeed, if the community has invested money in maintaining the facilities and so on, is in partnership, then they need 6 months notice to plan and otherwise have an opportunity to buy the team. And it's because of this 6-month window, I think it meets constitutional standards. So in that respect, I think that Attorney General DeWine can succeed. The problem is that there is a rule in law that the judges are going to look at, which is if you have a remedy at law, then you can't have a remedy in equity. And it's the remedy in equity, the preventing the team from leaving Columbus, that I think they'll have a problem with.
So they're going to have, the Crew could give Columbus $20 million or whatever it is.
Or something, because we have this 6-month window. I think it would be relatively easy in a matter of minutes to identify what the value would be that Columbus would be losing as a consequence of that.
So they could just reach a deal and move on, like break the contract and move out of town.
I think so, yeah.
What do you mean?
Who would get it?
Excellent question. Would it be the city? Would it be the patrons of the games? But in this, whoever cut the deal with them, whoever gave them the location and the parking and all of that, would more than likely be the only one that could be identified as a potential plaintiff.
All the crew fans get a check.
The crew fan. Yeah, maybe so.
So is this a realistic effort, or is this just trying to say, look, we fought to save this team? Because it seems like we saw the picture of that stadium. I mean, they've got a site, they've got a rendering, they've got a plan.
They don't have any parking, all
parking.
right?
Details,
Don't
details.
No way. That's going to be a problem. Austin is a mess traffic-wise. They're going to need parking. They're talking about motorboat
Yes.
taxis.
The stadium site that we saw on screen there does not have a parking lot attached to it. It's a 20-minute walk in Texas heat to get to the stadium, or you can take the water taxi or the buses. Or
Will they like this idea?
we will find out. Is that the only hope really the crew has? Is that Austin says, you know, this isn't going to
It
work.
seems
for
like a
us.
long shot for Columbus to keep the crew to me. It just seems like a long shot, and it seems like it's a decision that was made a long time ago for them to leave town. But there may be some money to be had out of this.
Well, if that law stands, I mean, I don't wonder how other teams will look at Ohio, and just having that kind of a shackle.
Well, you may be doing this. I mean, I think it's great that the Attorney General is doing this, but it may be more of a warning. I mean, I don't know if it's legal or not. I'm not an attorney. I wouldn't know. But I mean, it's almost like, well, if the Blue Jackets are thinking about doing this, if they know that they can get slapped with this lawsuit, are they going to just go ahead and do it? I mean, I think we got to do something about the teams we already have that may want to leave after this.
But it would seem, Joe, that they've given 6 months' notice. They're not going to leave until next year.
Yeah.
And they have asked the city to give them an offer to buy the team, but they say the city has not given them a reasonable offer.
And it could be that. Well, and that's the thing. They don't have to necessarily accept the offer, but at least it's something to be discussed. Yeah, I don't know where it's going to go, but I don't think a permanent injunction is going to be the remedy here.
I mean, can you really force somebody to sell something to somebody else? Can you
Well,
really
you can. It happens all the time, but not here. Not
Well,
in
you
this
know,
kind of a situation.
and I just think it's interesting that it's Republicans that are forcing this issue.
It
It's
is,
very
yes.
ironic on so many different levels that it was a law that was passed in retaliation for the Browns' departure.
Yeah.
That the Browns and their losing,
And
colossally losing
Republicans
season.
care about their sports fans.
They do,
okay?
but they care about their principles of economics and free trade and
Sports fans vote too.
Yeah. Well, most of the sports fans are in the suburbs where are the Republican suburbs. So yeah, there's a lot.
Why can't, if this law is upheld, why can't the city keep, say, a tech company which gets tax breaks from moving out of town? If they can keep a sports team from moving out of town.
Well, the law, I think, just talks
know.
about sports teams.
I know, it does talk about sports team, but you'd think that.
Well, they would have to pass another law to
Yeah.
do that.
Department stores.
They can't even enforce job promises by companies that they say they're going to. So I don't see them keeping a company in town if they against their will.
All right.
Well, we'll see.
All right, let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots. Joe Moss, you're up first.
Mike, I'm kind of sad to report that House Republicans approved a bill this week that would block undocumented workers from receiving workers' compensation in the event that they're injured on the job. But that bothers me. But what really bothered me, that in doing so, Representative Bill Seitz from Cincinnati insisted on using the pejorative term illegal in referring to these workers, even though Representative Dan Ramos from Lorain kept objecting to that. In insisting on doing this and doubling down on it, which in fact he did, Representative Seitz offended not only these vulnerable workers, but also Representative Ramos and me. Shame on him.
Bob.
The industry experts in advertising are predicting that in 2018, 2.8% more political advertising will be nationwide compared to 2014. So you're gonna see even more commercials than you did 4 years ago.
Wow.
Yay, you.
Yeah.
Just remember we have our non-commercial status. Ann.
Just the 2018, if something does get on the ballot to legalize marijuana universally in the state of Ohio, I don't think it'll pass, but I think it'll be a lot closer than it was the last time for a lot of reasons that we talked about earlier, and I think it's just a matter of time for sure.
Kathy.
For sure. This is the final week of Obamacare signups, enrollment, and on the individual marketplace plans. As expected, signups are running about a third behind what we had last year, so we can expect a big drop in enrollment this year. A lot of things the Trump administration did to kind of scale back is doing just that.
Marketing, they cut back marketing dollars.
Marketing, navigators to help people sign up, and they cut, most importantly, I think they cut the enrollment period in half to 6 weeks.
This week is a big week for the crew. If they have any hope, the Austin City Council considers the next step in this process at a meeting on Thursday night, so it'll be closely watched to see if the city leaders in Austin are welcoming pro soccer there and are willing to put up some cash or at least some land to bring the team there. That's probably Columbus fans' only hope, is if Austin says no. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online, Twitter, Facebook. Watch each episode on demand at our website, wosu.org/COTR. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.